This video is brought to you by Christ Episcopal Church, Pittsburgh. Now, since you're watching this, I'm guessing you want to know more about the daily office and how it's observed, or maybe how you can do it yourself. If you have no idea what that sentence means, I suggest you check out our video, What is the Daily Office, before watching this one. I'll put a link below. To introduce myself again, my name is Brandon. I'm the pastoral assistant here at Christ Church. And I hope to be able to answer your questions and help you find out how you too can observe the daily office. So, you're interested in observing the daily office, and you say to yourself, how can I go about starting? Well, there are three main ways. I'll start with the simplest first. Find a church that holds morning and evening prayer services. This is the simplest, as all you have to do is attend. The pros of this are, it's a great option because it's corporate worship. You're with a group of people. It can be the most complete form, with music, ritual, and all the fanciness one would expect in an Episcopal church. The cons, well, you have to be able to attend at the time that they are celebrating the service, which can be hard for some people due to work and school schedules, or simply because there isn't a church near you that is doing this. The second option is do it yourself. One of the great things about the daily office is it's open to anyone. You do not have to be ordained clergy to celebrate it, and you don't have to be in a church building to observe the service. In fact, almost all you need are a Book of Common Prayer and a Bible. We'll go over the specifics and the details in a little bit. The pros for this is it can be done on your schedule. It can be done anywhere, at home, at work, although I would probably suggest not doing it in the car, though there are ways that you can do this during a commute. The cons are that you're responsible for sticking to the schedule of observation. If you're going the do-it-yourself route, you will be the one celebrating the service. Then there's some other alternatives. Now, there are a lot of options that did not exist previously that we do have today, mostly through internet and electronic sources. Podcasts can be an option. This is the commuter choice I mentioned earlier. There are several churches and groups who will post the daily office every day that you can read through or join in live through websites or emails. And then there are daily devotions for individuals and families. This is a shortened version of the daily office contained within the Book of Common Prayer. These devotions follow the same basic structure of the daily office of the church, and they're meant for the convenience of the individuals. So they give you short psalms, lessons, and collects right there within the service. So, as I said, the only resources you will need are Book of Common Prayer and a Bible. Now, one useful thing is if you have a combined version like this that contains both the Book of Common Prayer and the Bible, one package. The service itself is based on the time of day. Morning prayer is in the morning, noonday is at noon, and evening is meant for dinner time-ish. Compline is at night. Now, once you know what time of day you're working with, you may have a decision to make if you're looking at morning prayer or evening prayer, because there's a right one and a right two. As a general rule, and there is more to this, right one is the older, more flowery language, and right two is more contemporary. So, we're going to walk through morning prayer, right two. It starts on page 75 of the Book of Common Prayer. So it begins with an opening sentence, and this is based on the season of the liturgical year. Now, if you're unsure what season you're in, there are several at any time options, but knowing what liturgical week it is will become important later. Next, it goes into the confession of sins. Now, some of the language changes if you are not a priest. The second person plural becomes the first person plural. You becomes us. These directions are included in the service itself. The next step is the invitatory. Again, this is based on the season with general options for weekdays. After that, there are three possible songs that come before the psalm: the Venite, the Jubilate, and during Easter, Christ our Passover. Now these can be said or sung, the choice of which is up to the celebrant. Next is the psalm appointed for the day. Now this is the first tricky spot. How can you determine what psalm is appointed for any given day? Well, you have to turn to page 934 of the Book of Common Prayer for the daily office lectionary. Now it's listed by weeks of the year, and this is where you have to know what season you're in. So let's take a slight detour to explain this. The liturgical calendar can be found on page 31 of the Book of Common Prayer, starting in Advent. The major weeks are easy to determine, but sometimes after Pentecost it can get confusing as we don't always start with proper one. This is all explained on page 158 of the Book of Common Prayer. Now once you know what week you're in, it's fairly simple to just go day by day, with the exception of right after Pentecost. Oh, there are two lists you say? Those are year 1 and year 2. If Advent started in an even-numbered year, you use year 1. And if it started in an odd-numbered year, you use year 2. This sounds way more complicated than it actually is. The whole reason for year 1 and year 2 cycles is to cover the majority of the Bible in 2 years, with the Psalms being read 3 times a year. So, on page 934 of the Book of Common Prayer, it goes into detail into which readings are done at morning prayer and evening prayer. Or if you're only doing one of the offices, you read all 3. Okay, so you use the lectionary, you know what readings you are to use. What about these numbered things that come after the lesson in the Book of Common Prayer? Well, these are called canticles, and you can follow every reading or say one after all the readings. Now the canticles on page 144 of the Book of Common Prayer are listed out as to which are used for morning, which are evening, and which days of the week. So after the lessons and the canticle, we move on to the Apostles' Creed. Next, we start the prayers. First we have the Lord's Prayer, and then the suffrages. There's option A and B. Now there's no chart here, it's just up to the celebrant. I suggest alternating each day. After this we have the collects. It calls for 1 or more, I usually say 3. We start with the collect of the day, which is from the prior Sunday, and then any of the 2 that you feel like choosing right there on the list. After that come the closing prayers. You choose one of the 3 listed: the general thanksgiving, prayer of St. Chrysostom, and then one of the 3 closing sentences. That's it. It really is pretty easy. The first few times you read through it, it may be awkward and take a little bit more time, but as you get used to using the daily office lectionary, you'll see how it will flow smoothly. I think the key is doing the same thing every time, repeating this until it becomes a habit. Same time, same place, same people. We do ours here in the chancel choir at the same time 3 times a week. I lead wearing choir dress and a volunteer reads the lessons. On days we don't have the full service, I still come to the chancel at the same time to read the morning prayer on my own. You'll quickly see how it can fit into the daily routine and how quickly it embeds itself as an essential part of your routine. It centers on your own personal prayers, and the lectionary will greatly increase your biblical literacy. You can create your own communities around this as you share it with your family, co-workers, small groups at church, or wherever you find it works for you. Don't let the charts and choices and lectionary intimidate you. These are the tools for you to be able to use to observe the daily office every day.